about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Back on Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. So it's interesting. When I was in school, I went to 12 schools, and somehow I always seemed to be near the top of the class. I don't want to say the top, maybe a couple classes at the top, but I just really was good academically. Sports, as long as it was kickball or something with running, I had leg power. Arms, couldn't do anything with arms. If I shot a hoop, I would jam my fingers. So, but academically, it was a strong point. And one time, one of my teachers gave me a G, and I thought the G was good, and it was actually one grade below F, because my handwriting was so bad that rather than giving me an F, she said, "This doesn't even deserve an F. This deserves a G." And so, I went home and I showed my mom, because I didn't want to get a whipping. I was like, G means good. Oh, okay, good. Oh, man, I learned to lie as a kid. Boy, do you lie. I lied my ass off. But that comment, this doesn't deserve an F. You don't deserve the denotation and the quan and the award and the classification of failure. It was that bad. That it made me realize that the failure class, kind of a good class to be in sometimes, right? Especially if you're falling before that. Because when you fail, it suggests it's temporary. It suggests that you didn't pass, but there's a reason for it. Now, this is where I get really frustrated with academia, where they just fail sometimes, people, just to kind of, because they don't like you or, whatever. No. No, if you're going to give a student an F, there has to be justification. What is it that they didn't qualify, that they didn't meet? What expectation, or what proficiency did they not meet? And so a failure can actually be a blessing. So if I was in medical school, and thank God I never failed any of my classes in medical school, I did get a D on my first biochem test. And boy, did that shake my confidence, never getting a D in my life. Although I do remember that one day in school, God, I forgot what it was. We did really, really bad. This was I think high school. And I remember we all got Fs for some reason. And, yeah. Okay, remember I told you it was the 7th grade and we were copying each other's tests? And so I asked this girl who was kind of a bully, because this guy I liked asked me, what was the answer to number 9? And I liked him, but I don't know. And I go, you know what? Let me ask her for us. I got this guy's attention. So when I asked the girl, she's like, the Aztecs swam and ate tomatoes. It was a test on the Aztecs. So I turn around and I go, they swam and ate tomatoes. And so the next day, the teacher goes, I know the majority of you cheated. And we're like, why? She said, because you guys all said that the Aztecs swam and ate tomatoes on that answer. So I actually was pretty proud of myself because, people were copying off of me and I had the wrong answer. And I got to be with the cool kids where we all failed. And we were like, woohoo, and it was like, high-fiving and, smacking each other. It was pretty fun. So it was a good day. It was a good day for me failing a test. But when we look at New Year's resolutions, we go, okay, I failed. People think it's permanent. You failed and now you get kicked out of the class or you don't get to try. No, a failure just means you didn't meet the expectations. You learned what the expectations are. You learned what you need to be proficient. You then hone in, you concentrate on that, and then you could succeed. And so, if somebody says, yeah, well, you're failing on your diet. Okay, well, that doesn't help. But what was it? What are the pieces? I'm exercising every day. I'm cutting out calories. I'm avoiding sugar. I'm eating small meals. What is it that I'm doing wrong? Well, is it the time of day you eat? It's the time, what? So we medical providers, try to take a look and see where you fail, just like any academician and anybody helping a student, because, we're all students, even as patients. And so when you look at what is it you're doing that's failing, and then you hone in on those, look, you're good here. So you don't need to double or triple down on that. Still do that good a job, but this is what you need to concentrate on. It's a blessing. And so for those of us that are thinking right now that it's going to the second week of January and we're failures, or whatever, whether it's February, March, because, remember, New Year's resolutions shouldn't just be about New Year's. If you want to lose weight, if you want to save money, if you want to, become more social and work on your dating, if you want to spend more time with family, that doesn't end just in January. This needs to extend throughout the year. Look at why did I fail? Everyone's like, oh, I failed. I'm depressed about it. I don't want to. No. What was it? Was it that you're watching a lot of football and watching a lot of games and you're seeing the food commercials and you're seeing, okay, well then maybe now, and then you're getting up to grab something to eat. I mean, there's a lot of, there's playoffs, there's basketball, there's hockey. I mean, there's so much going on right now. And so, is it the commercials? Is it that you're sitting and binging on Stranger Things when you really should stop every time there's an ad and just exercise, walk back and forth, grab some weights, be on a treadmill while you're watching it. Look at why you're failing. And it actually can be a good thing. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away. Back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So when I went to school, I remember we had something called Mulligan Stew. I don't know if that was just in the Maricopa County School District, but they had this song. It was like 4, 4, 3, 2, something for me and you. And I don't remember much, but it was a song. We had to watch these cartoons, and it was called Mulligan Stew. And the 4, 4, 3, 2 represented you needed 4 servings of bread. You needed 4 servings of vegetables. You needed 3 servings of dairy a day, and then 2 servings of meat. And it was 4, 4, 3, 2, 4, 4, 3, 2. Okay, well, over the years, we're like, you need a little bit more than, 4 servings of fruits and vegetables. You need to have 5 to 9. Now, meals are different than they were, back in the 80s. You would have breakfast, lunch, dinner. Now people are, I look at lines that you see in McDonald's you know what? You like In-N-Out. In-N-Out has lines at 3:30 in the afternoon or at 11 o'clock at night. And so people are not necessarily eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They're eating when they're hungry. And so if you are going to be eating multiple meals or multiple times a day, then you might as well get a vegetable in all those times. So over the years, the food pyramid has evolved where they want you to have vegetables, and the most important being the base of the structure and the most nutritious. And then at the little bitty tip of the pyramid is where, it's the sugars and processed foods. RFK Jr. is now changing that around. And so he is going to, rather than the, food pyramid looking like, your base has the healthy food, he's flipping it. And so vegetables, fruit, proteins, dairy, healthy fats are at the top, and then grains are at the bottom. And so according to Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy, they say the new guidelines recognize the whole nutrient-dense food is the most effective path to better health and lower health care costs. He said the new framework centers on protein and healthy fats, vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. It's upside down, a lot of people say. It was actually upside down before. So the initial food pyramid got introduced in the 90s, where sugars were at top, recommending 2 to 4 servings of dairy, meat, fruit, and vegetables in the middle, and then 8 to 11 servings of bread, rice, pasta, and other grains at the bottom. And then there was the My Plate with the Obama administration. And I do credit Michelle Obama for trying to make school lunches healthier. Unfortunately, we would be seeing pictures of garbages where the majority of the food was thrown out. But I do credit Michelle Obama for spearheading a lot of the discussion on we got to make our food healthier for kids. And so we have FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary, Dr. Oz, Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Administrator, Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins. So they joined Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt today at the White House briefing room to discuss this. And RFK Jr. said diets rich in vegetables and fruits reduce disease risk more effectively than many drugs. All grains outperform refined carbohydrates. Added sugars, especially sugar-sweetened beverages, drive metabolic disease. He's right. And today our government declares war on added sugar, highly processed foods loaded with additives, added sugar, and excess salt. Now, Brooke Rollins said that these guidelines will apply to whole foods, whether they are fresh, frozen, canned, or dried. So Carolyn Leavitt said these new guidelines are going to update the food that is served to America's children in our public schools to the plates that are served to our great men in uniform, in our military, our veterans, and the food that they are consuming at the VA. And these new guidelines are also going to impact nutritional programs for the needy for our country, including WIC and Head Start. So we're going to get a little bit more details, and we're going to probably get the new pyramid. But this isn't rocket science. I mean, this is something that doctors and parents have been kind of concerned about. And many people say, Dahlia, does anybody really listen to the government on what to eat? I love the idea of there being the CDC, there being a go-to where some of the best and most transparent studies and information is for people to be able to, I guess, fact check. So let's say you see a provider and you think the provider is board certified and, you can't really verify. You need to be able to get a second opinion. You need to be able to fact check. You need to be able to verify. And you also need to know what is the, brightest in our country, and scientists and doctors recommending. Now, we have multiple medical societies, right? You got the American Cancer Society, which is excellent. You got the AAFP, you got the AAP, you got you have multiple medical societies, but they differ on some of their recommendations. And we're also seeing a lot of political infusion in them. And so patients are starting to get confused. And look at what happened during the COVID years, where people looked at the CDC as, wait a second, I want to see if there's side effects to the vaccine. I want to see, and they weren't getting the information they wanted. So people thought the CDC was just going to be a political puppet. And I really want to see the CDC nonpartisan. I want it doesn't matter who the president is. If there are risks to something, that gets exposed, that gets discussed, and parents can make an educated decision. If I understand that the U.S. government was in bed with pharmaceutical companies and they bought a lot of these vaccines for COVID, but if a healthy 6-month-old infant doesn't need to get a COVID vaccine, does that have to be a universal recommendation? Or can it be those at high risk, or if a parent wants it? And so these are things that are not, I guess, foreign. These are things that in science we talk about all the time. And now we're looking at our foods. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that I go to the grocery store and you have the vegetables and the fruits and they're getting expensive. And the fresh food is expensive, but then you could, for $4.99, get a frozen meal that is full of preservatives. And so many people are going to the $1.99 menu at a fast food place, or they're going to the frozen meals because they're trying to feed a family for under $20. And it's nearly impossible when you try to do for every time I go to the grocery store. And I think, okay, I'm going to buy groceries for the week. I barely get enough for 2 meals, and it's still over $100. And so sometimes I tell my husband, just pick up a pizza. Well, picking up a pizza is not the healthiest thing. It's cheap. Yeah, it'll get the boys fed, but is it the healthiest thing? So what I always do is I have fresh vegetables and I have other things, but still, what's in that pizza? And so and look, I like an In-N-Out burger with the rest of them, but I probably only eat In-N-Out maybe twice a year. Because again, I know there's preservatives in these foods. And people have now turned these foods into their main staple because they're tastier, they're juicier, they're quicker, ready-made. They're easily transportable. They're portable. And they're cheaper. I think In-N-Out's burger is what, $3.67. Now, I mean that's still a lot for a burger when you remember the 99-cent burger. When I worked at Jack in the Box in the 90s, I remember us having 99-cent Jumbo Jacks. So, and I made them. They probably should have dropped the price if I was making them, but. Yeah. But for a burger, I mean, when you go to Wendy's or these other places, these burgers are like $6-7. So if somebody wants to save money, they're unfortunately trying to go to cheaper ways to do it. Well, who is going to oversee the cheap food and to make sure that it's not hurting us, to make sure we're not having chronic disease? The problem we have is we have unhealthy children that are overweight, that are getting sick, that are getting hospitalized more than they need to when it comes to flu and other things. And so we keep going to vaccines to help them. And vaccines are important, but they're not, we are not making that population healthier. Now we're saving lives with vaccines, but we got to look at what else is going on. Why else is our pediatric population not doing well? Is it their diet? Is it also, very interesting. I'll talk to patients and I'll say, did you get, vaccinated for flu COVID? Yeah, I did. That's why I thought I could go out. And that's why I thought I could, I got the vaccine. I think a lot of people don't understand. And they think the vaccine is like a superpower shield that just deflects everything, because that's how we talked about it during COVID, which I thought was wrong, where all you need to do is get the COVID vaccine and you'll never get COVID. No, what it does is it mitigates disease. So I think there's a lot of people thinking, you know what, I'm good. I could just go out and do what I want, and we could go to Disneyland in the middle of flu season because my kids got their vaccine, and then the kids come down with flu and they're like, what happened? So I think we need to just have more education, and that I really, really support. If that's what the HHS is doing, all the power to them. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
Hi guys, Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So we'll have more information in a little bit, but currently Minnesota state representatives are now testifying at the U.S. House Oversight Committee hearing on the allegations of fraud and misuse of federal funds. So as you remember, there were multiple, ghost companies that were receiving billions of dollars in taxpayer money, claiming to be daycare centers or helping underprivileged kids and feeding the needy. And when a content creator, Nick Shirley, posted videos of him going up there saying, look, I just want to know, where's the kids? I don't see, I know this says it's a quality learning center because you misspelled learning, but where's the kids? It definitely brought the eye of Mordor on, and a good reason to, on what is going on and how big is this fraud scheme. And we've come to find out that there's multiple other states now where obviously there's probably fraud everywhere, but now watchdogs are ensuring that tax dollars aren't being wasted on other social needs. Benefits that people need to access and acquire. So federal officials, in the meantime, after what happened with Minnesota, have since frozen child care payments to the state. Leaders apparently have until Friday to give the Trump administration information about providers and parents who get the funds, which I think is absolutely appropriate. I don't see why people are having such a big issue of this. When you are getting government money, you need to show, there has to be some transparency. Only once did I apply for unemployment when a bunch of us got laid off from a restaurant I was working at while I was going to medical school. And I never actually fully applied. I just went. And, they gave me the booklet and all that. And, they said, what you have to do is with this booklet, every job you go to, you have to have the employer write if they offered you a job or not. And I'm thinking to myself, look, I'm in medical school. I could very easily find another job. I don't need the funds, but I just went with everybody because I wanted to see what the process was. And I never did take unemployment or anything like that. because I didn't need to. I got another job at another restaurant. And I wasn't even supposed to work during medical school, but I needed money to help support the family, and it was my extended family, and it was a lot of drama with that. But I'm glad I did. But the checks and balances and all the bookwork you had to do, because you were going to start getting state funds, and you had to document and have other people sign. It was to show that, look, that we're not giving money for nothing, and your chicks for free. I mean, you need to show us, that this has to be verified. And that process was a good process because it makes people then go and try to get another job. But that was in the 90s. And so if there are individuals that are receiving benefits, and and you're applying for, if you're going through the process of applying for benefits, and you also are able to go through the process of reapplying or validating and verifying. Now, Governor Tim Walz is going to testify before the same committee, but next month. In the meantime, as you all know, he did drop his reelection bid, and this is a concern. I mean, Governor Walz said, this in a way, he said this was on him because he was the governor at the time. But I mean, how much was, he involved? How much were, when you hear that whistleblower said, look, I tried to say something and I got silenced. I think this is going to be a much bigger issue than we know. 3 Republican state representatives from Minnesota testified before the committee today, and they said that they believe that Governor Tim Walz knew about the fraud happening in the state. This is according to CNN. State Representative Kristen Robbins said Walz and his administration willfully turned a blind eye to crime in the face of countless whistleblower and auditor reports. Now, this is very easy to prove. If there are the auditors and the whistleblowers, and you have the reports, and you saw that they went to him, or then it's pretty easy to prove. You just can't say, oh, they knew. I mean, if there is this documentation, that's pretty damning. Robbins also accused Governor Walz of blocking criminal investigations surrounding fraud and allowing it to grow in Minnesota. State Representative Walter Hudson said concerns about fraud were consistently ignored by the governor's office. Hudson said he believed this was in part because Somali Americans were a significant piece of the Democratic voting base in Minnesota. And, so here's the thing. This is why I really can't stand politics being so big. How it's infiltrating medicine and common sense and a policy that's, supposed to help your constituents. It's very easy to be supportive of a community and still follow the law and prosecute when you need to. I know they're saying that the majority of individuals that were involved in this were of Somali descent, but it's almost more anti-Somali if you say, you know what, I'm just not going to touch it because it's the whole population. No. Right? When we go after criminals, we're blind. We're supposed to be blind to race, creed, gender. It's the act. And if you are getting incarcerated or if you're getting charged and tried, it's because of the act that you did. And so I find it very odd that, if this is true, that you would have a public official say, you know what, they're Somalians, so we're going to leave them alone because they're, people are, we got to make them happy. Well, then you're in that sort of action, you're inferring that it's rampant throughout that population. And that's very discriminatory. So if you really want to help the Somali population, then address the criminals so it doesn't mar a whole population of beautiful and amazing people. And I just don't get that. And it's, I think people are so worried about their political butts, and that's the problem with politicians. The job of a politician is to get elected and reelected. And then their second focus is to protect their party. That's not supposed to be the job of a politician. The job of a politician is you're supposed to represent your state. I mean, look at Catherine Cortez Masto, a senator in Nevada. She didn't give in to this BS. Neither did John Fetterman as it pertained to the government shutdown. She's like, Nevadans don't want this. I'm here for Nevada. And then Jackie Rosen finally followed suit. But that's what we need more of. I don't care if you're D or R. What does your state need? And if funds are being peed away and abused, and that's hurting your constituents, you're supposed to help your constituents first. So one of the reasons why Tim Walz isn't running again is because he probably knows he's not going to get another chance in office. And fraud is bad, and it stinks that we've had such a lackadaisical attitude with it over the past few years, and even longer. That now, look at what happened with COVID funds, and just ridiculous. And the government is at fault because they're the ones that are, incentivizing people to want to be on the government dime. The more people on the government dime, then the more they control. The lockdowns with COVID, people are saying, can I just go back to work? Can I just open up my shop? Can I just open up my restaurant? No, you need to stay closed and we'll give you money. Well, the more you do that, the more it opens up room for fraud. It invites more fraud. And so, looking back at who needs the funds, you want to make sure those who need the funds get the funds. Look at what happened with the California wildfires. And there was a lot of discussion and auditing of where did the money go? We raised millions and millions of dollars for victims, and where did the money go? So there has to be auditing. There has to be checks and balances. And I don't understand why this hasn't been done up until now. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So January 7th marks the 1-year anniversary of the start of the deadly Los Angeles wildfires, the Palisades, the Eaton fires, and it took nearly a month to contain them. According to the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation, there were reports that it caused up to $53.8 billion in property damage alone. According to Fox News, the department's research also found extraordinarily high destruction rates, with the Palisades fire destroying 56.3% of all assessed structures, 55.8% of single-family homes. The Eaton fire destroyed about 50% of all structures and single-family homes. One people always ask, what was different about these fires? And I'm not a firefighter expert, and we're waiting on our guests. But one thing that I think was different, one is there were very, very high winds and very, very dry conditions. But that's not different. California sadly deals with a lot of dry vegetation and dry winds, and you got the Santa Ana winds and all that. But one thing that I think was also very, very different was when Florida had the hurricanes, and we've discussed this, the year prior, Florida had said, guys, get your electric vehicle away from the house because flooding could cause igniting if there is a car fire that has to do with the lithium battery. Unfortunately, our firefighters are going to struggle to try to get that out. And I would have liked to see that sort of recommendation for many of the homes and friends and family that were in California, that they had to leave, they had to evacuate. And unfortunately, with electric vehicles, that added, I think, it was the winds and it was, the dry conditions. But on top of that, we're hearing from firefighters that it was very, very difficult to extinguish, many of these vehicles and many of these homes where the vehicle was in the garage. And so I think, if we look back and see what we could do differently, which is what we're going to be talking about next, I think there's a lot of things that we could do. So at this 1-year anniversary, we were very, very grateful to have Robert Passmore, Department Vice President of Personal Lines at the American Property Casualty Insurance Association, and Todd Lando, Battalion Chief and Wildfire Mitigation Specialist with the Central Marin Fire Department. Here to discuss how Californians can protect their homes, finances, and families, as well as, the rest of our, those of us that live in dry areas and areas where we are prone to wildfires. So thank you, Robert Todd, for joining us. So how are insurers helping Southern California policyholders now recover and rebuild 1 year after the wildfires?
Well, since the first hours after the January 7th fire ignited, insurers have been on the ground helping families navigate the claims and rebuilding process. Over the past year, over 42,000 claims have been filed, 94% of which have had some payments made. Those payments total $22.4 billion so far to help families restore or replace their homes, their belongings, and businesses as well.
Gosh, that's fantastic. Thank you for doing that. I had a fire as a child, and it burned through the home. And, we were really grateful for our company, putting us in a motel, getting us fed, giving us some extra money for clothes. But what should homeowners be thinking about now, before another tragedy, in terms of, coverage and making sure that they are able to fully rebuild?
Since COVID, the cost to rebuild a home has increased about 40%. Inflation has increased labor costs and material costs and have driven up the cost of rebuilding. So it's really important that homeowners do a financial checkup with their insurance company or agent at least once a year. You want to make sure that your insurer has accurate information about your home, square footage, and especially any renovations that you might have done to make sure you don't find yourself uninsured. You should also talk to your agent about optional coverage such as inflation guard coverage or extended replacement cost coverage and building code upgrade coverage. All those things you can really help avoid being in a bad situation if something should happen down the road.
Absolutely, Robert. Yeah. So, some people might feel they're insured, but they're underinsured. Talk to us about how to avoid that where, you think you got the right coverage, but you're actually underinsured.
Well, that's exactly it. That's why you need to review your coverage with your agent or with your company pretty much every year, and make sure that you're financially prepared for a catastrophe. Something else you can do is make a home inventory. When these fires leave nothing behind in most cases, so taking some time to document what you have will make the claims process easier if you have to go through that, and it's easy to do. Take your phone, take a video, all the rooms, and don't forget the garage. Just take pictures of it, and then keep it someplace in the cloud or someplace off-site where you can get it if something happens.
That's brilliant, because when you're going through the shock, it's hard to remember everything, and so I think that's brilliant advice. Todd Lando, I'm glad you're here with us as well. When we look back at the Lahaina fires, there was one house, the one with I think it was the red house or with the red rooftop, where one house in Lahaina survived. Because before the fires, they got rid of shrubbery, they changed their roof, and it was amazing how, when they bought that home, they had the foresight to make some changes that actually made it resistant to wildfire. Talk to us about some of the key steps homeowners can do to make their homes more resistant.
Yeah, that house was a brilliant example, although I think it was unintentional, somewhat accidental on the part of the homeowners. That said, what those homeowners in Lahaina did to their home is really exactly what we all need to be doing if we live in a wildfire-prone area. We call it Zone 0. This is the area within 5 feet of the outside walls of your structure, and it's the most critical area to focus on when you want to reduce your risk. That's where embers accumulate when they're blowing towards you, millions, trillions of embers blowing towards the home during a wildfire. That's where they build up. That's where they ignite materials, whether it's the house itself or especially things that can burn, combustibles, within that 5-foot envelope outside your home. Things that are stored there, your garbage cans and recycling cans, even the Amazon box on your front doorstep or your combustible jute fiber doormat at your front door are things that can make you vulnerable. And especially vegetation, the plants that we might have, especially within that 5-foot Zone 0. Those are critical things to focus on. And really, when a homeowner looks at just that 5-foot zone outside of their home, it becomes much more manageable. And that really is where about 60 to 90%, the science shows, of home ignitions occur during these wildfires.
You are so true. My listeners in California and my family members, they have beautiful properties and beautiful, and they live in, great areas. But how can they, I know some people are worried about curb appeal. They're worried about, resale value. I think this helps. I think knowing that those precautions have already been taken actually helps.
Absolutely. There is concern about some homes that have very small lots and the short setbacks between them and their neighbors. Frankly, those are indications that you need to be doubly concerned. The closer your neighbors are, the greater your risk is, because you're dependent on someone else taking care of their property. But again, that first 5 feet is critical. And what we found is that you can maintain a beautiful property that does not have vegetation or lots of vegetation or combustibles within that first 5 feet. We have examples of beautiful homes with tremendous curb appeal that are ignition resistant within that first 5 feet. They're out there. Frankly, when we talk about curb appeal, when we talk about property values, especially in California and wildfire-prone states, the biggest impact to our property values right now is our ability to retain insurance, affordable insurance.
Exactly.
So it's far more valuable to a property owner to reduce the risk of igniting than to can be concerned about having greenery within 5 feet.
Absolutely. Robert, Todd, I wish we had more time. You guys are wonderful. Where can my listeners go for more information?
Well, on insurance issues, you can go to www.apci.org for more information.
For wildfires in California, firesafemarin.org and Cal Fire's readyforwildfire.org websites are the two best resources.
Wonderful. Can't wait to have you back. Thank you so much. Take care. All right, guys, don't go away. We'll be right back. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Hey guys, it's Dr. Dahlia. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles, along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective.
Right now, for a limited time, The New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.